Alrighty, well, let me preface the talk that I'm about to give with the first time I ever spoke in front of a group of people was actually a month ago in front of like 30 people or so. So I found that I and I all a lot, and if I just like randomly stop talking and forget my train of thought, I apologize ahead of time, but I promise we will make it through this. But I am a firefighter paramedic. I have been so for the past 8 years. And I've had a pretty awesome career. I've got to work with a lot of awesome people and do a lot of pretty cool stuff. And I don't want the talk that I'm about to give to feel like I dislike the fire service or that I'm leaving the fire service to now become a web developer. I just feel like I may have found my passion somewhere else. But the way that firefighters have things set up is we work for 24 hours at a time, and we are off for 48 hours at a time, which gives us the opportunity to have, some side gigs. A lot of them are either handyman or, cut grass or something like that. And that really didn't appeal to me too much. I'm already out in the sun a lot, so, I kind of wanted to do something where I sat down. So I jumped onto Google and started doing some research, and I thought that, the internet sounds like a great place to find a job. So I kept landing on web development. So I was like, maybe I keep coming back to web developers. Something about this just sounds really cool to me. So let me do some research. And I was finding out that web developers have the ability to sometimes work remote, which is what I currently work right now. It didn't have like a set 9 to 5 schedule, which was good for me because I have a rotating schedule. So like I said, I'll work for 24, sometimes 48 hours at a time, and most jobs are it's kind of hard to, they want consistency. I kind of felt like the internet really wasn't going anywhere. I felt like it's kind of here to stay, so, I didn't think of, losing my job or anything like that. And it felt like the industry is growing. So, if you have a growing industry, I thought, jobs and opportunities are going to grow along with it. So I was like, all right, let's figure out how websites are made. Let's run over to YouTube. So I started watching some YouTube tutorials, and I found out about the language HTML. I found how you can, style or, write out your elements in a code editor, and then you load them up into a browser, and boom, you got a web page. It looks a little bit like Craigslist. It didn't look very pretty, but I was hooked from the second I started doing it. At this point in my life, I did not own a computer. Which seems really weird that somebody who didn't own a computer would want to get into web development. So I was borrowing my wife's MacBook Air, which is covered in paint. So I'm doing all this stuff, and I'm like, I need to get my own machine. I need to start, doing this sort of thing. But while it's a hobby, I don't really want to run out and buy a $1,000 computer. So I went and I got a $200 Chromebook from Best Buy, and I put Linux on it. And I was able to have a code editor on my Linux, and it already had a browser because it was a Chrome device, and that was enough to get me started and to get me sort of building out these pages while I didn't sink a whole lot of money into this possible hobby. So what I was finding as I was looking at these YouTube tutorials was some of them were from like 2006, 2007 era. And as I learned more about technology, I realized that a lot's happened in that time. I was kind of afraid that maybe I was learning, some outdated stuff. It may have very well been relevant stuff, but in the back of my mind, I had that going on. And then I also had the thought going in the back of my mind that, anybody with a YouTube account and, a screencaster can make something and then say it's, it's good to go and throw it up there. So I was starting to look for some more reputable places to get my learning from. The two that I found were Free Code Camp and W3 Schools. I loved both of them. Free Code Camp was kind of set up like more like a curriculum based, where you show your competency in something and then you get to move on to show that competency. And W3 Schools was kind of sectioned to be more siloed into different languages. Which gave me the ability to, one day I'm learning about HTML, the next day I'm learning about CSS. And that's when I started learning about CSS. It was awesome because not only could I turn things like yellow But I also saw how people were using CSS to, lay out their sites, and, my web pages were now starting to look a little bit more like the stuff that I encountered on a daily basis on the internet. So I'm doing all this, playing around, and the way that I found WordPress was in the suggested videos on the side of YouTube. WordPress kept popping up. And so at this point in my life, I'd actually never heard of WordPress. So I did a little bit of research, found out that a large portion of the sites are made using it. And I was like, if the market seems to be this large for WordPress, I should probably at least know what it is. So I clicked on one of the videos, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Like, people were using WordPress to manage the content that was on their site. They were uploading themes that would change the entire look of the site, and plugins that had functionality I didn't even think was possible. So I jumped back onto YouTube because now this is another thing that I must learn. And I watched tutorial after tutorial, and I found that I needed the local web development environment on my computer, which was a little bit weird with a Linux that was sitting on top of a Chromebook. I was able to make it work, kind of. I was able to get an installation onto my computer. I was able to move in and out themes and plugins, but it was throwing a whole bunch of authentication errors. But it was just enough to get me started and get me developing and seeing how things were put together. At this point, this had just been a journey of one. I really hadn't even told my friends what I was doing. The only person that knew about it was my wife, because I kept stealing her computer. But I found that in my learning that I could only type so much into a Google search bar. I was hitting a whole lot of roadblocks, and I felt like the only way I was going to get past amateur status was to start connecting with other people. So I found a Meetup app, and I was like, maybe I can just get hooked up with other web developers. I didn't think I could get as specific as a WordPress meetup, but I found a local meetup here in Orlando, and I messaged David Lieta, he's one of our organizers, and I was like, hey, this is where I am in my journey, this is how much I've learned, I'm a firefighter, I'm trying to become a web developer, and I left enough space in that message for him to be like, this is not for you, this is people that make money with WordPress. So basically buzz off. But that wasn't what I got back. I got back a super welcoming message. Just like, I don't even care if you don't know what WordPress is, just come and meet people and learn. So I'm sitting in my truck at my first meetup, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You're walking in here with a Chromebook. They're probably gonna laugh at that as soon as you pull it out. And you're a firefighter. Your technical ability is putting water on things that are hot. What are you trying to do? Doing this computer stuff. I am also a very introverted person. I'd be way more comfortable sitting at the back of this room right now instead of the dude sweating on stage. But, aside of all those feelings that I had, I went in anyways. I was like, what's the worst they could do? They're going to banish me from the meetup. Okay, I'm not allowed to come back to the meetup, whatever. And I thought there was going to be people there that were just very advanced, business owners or web developers that were using WordPress to make money. But there again, not what I found. I found people there of all skill levels. People that were coming in and saying hey, what's WordPress? And there were people like me that were trying to get WordPress to do stuff, but running into a bunch of roadblocks. And then there were a whole bunch of other people there too that were, very knowledgeable and could answer any of the questions that I had. But I was just very excited to finally be around other people that were passionate about web development. At this point, I'd only got 2 months, but it was all by myself and Google. So I was just very happy to kind of be starting bouncing ideas off of everybody else. But when the question and answer time came, my first question was hey, how's everybody learning? I'm learning from these 2 sources. Does anybody else have any other examples or anything? And one of the organizers leaned forward and said, if you live in Orange County or Seminole County, which I live in Seminole County, and you have a library card, you got free lynda.com subscription. So I thought that was awesome. I was like, hey, if people pay for it, it's got to be awesome. So I took that and stuck it in my back pocket. And then I tried to get some help with some of the authentication errors that were throwing on my Linux platform. And when I would spin the computer around and try to show people, I mean, like, they just glass right over it. Like, they're like, I have no idea how to help you. Because, everybody's either working in a Windows platform or, a Macintosh platform. And I was of the 1% that was, using a Linux machine. So I left that meetup so excited. Now I've, made some connections. And I went to my wife and I was like, hey, I'm going to need to borrow your MacBook Air for the foreseeable future. Which she was thrilled with, because I was like, here, let me offer you this Chromebook. So I went forward into my learning with a pink MacBook Air, but at least I was on a better platform. So that kind of brings me to the first part of my guide for anybody that may be curious or just starting out with this whole web developer thing, is try to find some reputable online learning. The two that I've already mentioned are Free Code Camp and W3 School. I use W3 Schools to this day still. Like say something comes down the pipe at the agency, some funky thing they want done with CSS, I'll just tell them like, heck yeah, I know how to do that. I'll just run over to W3 Schools real quick to remind myself how to do it. The three paid ones that I've had the opportunity of using are lynda.com, Treehouse, and Udemy. I grabbed a couple courses on Udemy. But when I first started all of this, I was very skeptical of online learning. In the current career that I'm in, certain aspects of it, not the paramedic side, you don't want to learn on the job, but the firefighter side is all, learning on the job. So, I wouldn't read a book how to take an axe and start chopping through a wall. I just started swinging at the wall and kind of figured out as I went. So I just kind of felt like if I'm going to be having like some video talking at me and then I'm going to go learn how to do it, it felt very hands-off to me. So some of the things that I found as I started doing it, which turned out to be very beneficial to me, was the ability to pause and take well-thought-out notes. When you're sitting in front of somebody who's speaking, you kind of hastily write notes. But I was finding out that I was able to put well-thought-out thoughts onto, paper. And I was starting to rack up some notes. And these notes are a huge asset to me today. I use them all the time. The ability to replay courses. As my knowledge grows with development, there's been some courses that I've watched a few times, and I'll get something new out of it every single time I watch it because, I'm picking up on new things that I hadn't heard before. What kind of debunked the whole hands-off thing for me was the in-browser code editing. I know that Lynda does it, and I'm sure the other ones have the ability too. But as you're watching a course, you could hit a button, a window pops up, and it's a code editor that sits alongside of a mock browser, and as you make changes in that interface, it just populates right there. So that seemed about as hands-on to me as this could get. I'm actually doing it as they're talking about it. Because of the schedule that I have, it was kind of hard to be a part of like a traditional learning type setup. Because, if I just can't show up for a third of the time, I'm sure I'm not going to learn too much. So it was nice that it worked for my schedule. So I'm going to these meetups, and I heard about this thing called WordCamp. This was in September, I think it was my first meetup. And so I think it was scheduled for October of last year. And I heard, you spend $40, you've got a whole weekend of learning, what's not to love. I think I signed up for it at the meetup before I left. And as everybody knows, last year we kind of got hit with Hurricane Matthew. I would say hit, we got a storm last year. And in my current line of work, if we got a big storm coming at us, I can almost guarantee that I'm going to be at work for 4 days. I've got to be there for the prep work, for getting everything set up. I got to weather the storm at the fire station. And then I have to be ready with my equipment as soon as the wind restrictions lift, so that we can, be right there to help people. And with this last storm with Irma, it actually happened. We had 40 pending medical calls in the county when the restrictions lifted. So over an 8-hour period, they racked up 40 calls. We just went from call to call to call based on how important it was. Like a stubbed toe would be as important as someone that can't breathe. So I was super bummed. They canceled WordCamp, and I felt like I wasn't going to get an opportunity to start breaking past some of this stuff that I was running into. So I got a little bit desperate and maybe a tiny bit creepy. And I messaged David, and I was like, hey man, can we go to lunch or something? I'm running into a whole bunch of stuff here, and I just really need some one-on-one learning. Can you help me? And he was like, well, I'm not really set up for one-on-one learning, but WordCamp's back on. If you have your ticket, you've got all this swag, we've got to do something with it. We're setting up for November. So WordCamp's back on. I'm super stoked. And again, I'm sitting in my truck. I think I showed up a little bit late, so I'm watching hundreds of people walk into this venue, and the same insecurities are going through my head. The only people that are here are business owners that make a whole bunch of money. I'm going to just be this one nerdy kid that likes building things on the web, that just kind of wanders around. So I started wandering around from talk to talk, and the first talk was way over my head. Didn't catch a single thing. I just nodded when everyone else was nodding. And I went to the next one, and I was like, I had already heard every single thing the talk had said. And I was just getting super frustrated. I was surrounded by 200 people, but I felt very alone. I just kind of felt like, everybody's doing their own thing, and I'm just bouncing around from talk to talk, and I was getting pretty frustrated, which was also coming into also in the back of my mind, what are you doing? You're a firefighter. And by lunchtime, I wanted to go home. I was like, I'm not going to leave early. Just stick it out through, get some lunch, stick it out the rest of the day, but you don't have to come back tomorrow. So lunchtime comes, and I was kind of at a last-ditch effort. I'm like, well, if I'm not coming back tomorrow, might as well just walk up to somebody and sit down. So I saw this guy that looked very familiar to me. And I walk up to him, and I sit down, or I ask if I can sit down. I'm like, hey, can I sit down? And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I'm like, hey, you look extremely familiar. You look like a treehouse instructor that I learned some Genesis stuff from. And he's like, oh, that's funny, because I'm a treehouse instructor. I'm Jesse Peterson. And so I kind of fangirled out a little bit. I was like, oh my God. And I sit down, and I share with him my story. I'm like, I'm firefighting, I'm trying to become a web developer, I'm hitting a bunch of roadblocks. And he shared with me his story of how he got into, what he does. And by the end of the lunch, he was like, hey, I really feel like I should be mentoring you. I'm now Puddle on the ground. I'm trying to play it cool. I'm like, yeah, this sounds like a very useful business relationship. So he's like, okay, sweet. Let's go to the next talk. I'm going to get you set up on some stuff on your computer. You watch the talk. I'll set your stuff up. He was extremely helpful to me in the months ahead. He messaged me almost every day, either to see if I needed help with my website stuff, or to make fun of the fact that I'm a firefighter and call me a hose dragger. But he was always checking in on me and seeing if I needed any help. And he definitely became an example of what I thought a good mentor should be, and a good mentor that I would want to be moving forward. I'm sure, as a lot of you know in the WordPress community, Jesse Peterson passed away in July of this year from complications from cystic fibrosis. He was an amazing guy, and I know a lot of people are going to miss him. I'm going to miss him a whole lot too. And I'm just going to try to hopefully be the mentor that he was to me one day. So the second day comes, and I thought to myself, It worked out so great yesterday. Let me just walk up to people and awkwardly just, like, I'm Sam, this is what I do with WordPress. So it was working out fine. I was meeting a whole bunch of cool people, going from talk to talk. And at the end of the day, I was having some Genesis questions that I wanted answered. So I went to the happiness bar to see if I could get some one-on-one help. And I met this lady named Sandy Edwards. She was helping me out and talking to me about, like my journey and what I was trying to do. And she introduced me to her husband, Chris. And little did I know they were actually going to be my future bosses one day. And they told me not to call them bosses. They are my work colleagues. Yeah. So I met my future work colleagues at WordCamp exactly a year ago. And I was so inspired by this community. I was watching people help each other. I was seeing them help me. And I went from such a low the first day to where I was ready to just take off and this isn't for me, to feeling like I was in the exact right spot within a 48-hour period. So the next part of my guide that I would try to highlight to people is that it is all about the people. If I had to do this all over again, I would be like, oh, I'm interested in becoming a web developer. I would immediately go try to find other web developers and just be like, you don't have to answer all my questions, just lay out a path for me, and then I can get started on that path, just so I didn't have any of the doubts of, am I learning something that's completely irrelevant to what I'm trying to learn and all that sorts of stuff. It also kind of gives you the ability to have some accountability. When it is 11 o'clock at night, and I don't feel like coding, sometimes I can jump onto Slack or onto Facebook, and I see people helping each other. That's kind of inspiring to me and pushes me forward. So I'm like, yeah, this is why I'm doing it, because I'm connected with such an awesome group of people. Let's code at 11 o'clock at night. It also gives you the ability to not have to be a jack of all trades. I know that there are certain people in my meetup space that specialize in certain things. And if I ever come across one of those with a client, I know just who to call to learn, say, accessibility or something like that. I don't have to know all of those things. I just have to know the people that are experts in those fields. As I've been watching the WordPress community over this past year, I'm finding out the people that kind of niche down into something that they're passionate about, they end up becoming more sought after. So if they get clients that, it's an edge case client that needs something done with JavaScript, and we've got a JavaScript guy, we can shoot the client towards that person, and it gives them an opportunity to kind of glean some more clients. I will say all of this with Google is your friend. I kind of adhere to the 15-minute rule. I will Google something for at least 15 minutes or check on the first few pages. And if I can't get past what I'm trying to figure out, then I will go to my base of people so that I save them for the really hard questions. But it's totally cool to ask for help when you're first gaining knowledge. I utilize Slack all the time. Jump on Slack and ask some people in the local meetup if you've got a question on something. I would also encourage anybody first getting started out to search out the tools that people are using, whether that be hardware or software. They're probably using it for a reason. If it's not just because they're used to it, maybe there's something that you're not seeing. And find out where they're gaining their knowledge from too. I'm pretty passionate about Lint.com, Treehouse, and the free places that I go to. But I'm sure every person that you ask will also have places that they're equally passionate about and where they gain their knowledge from. So it would be weird if I told you all to go out and ask people hey, ask them about the tools if I didn't tell you what tools I use. So my hardware is a MacBook Pro. I have since graduated from the Chromebook. Well, I've since graduated from the MacBook Air to actually getting something that I own. The software that I use Atom and NetBeans for my code editing. I use Gravity Forms for building out forms. I use Git for version control on a lot of my projects, and I use the Genesis framework with StudioPress to kind of quickly throw up a site or modify a child theme so that I can have a site look the way I need it to. I would also encourage people to keep going to these events. You're at one right now. We have a meetup every month. That, I'm going to take that off so you stop dancing. We have a meetup every month. You know, come and meet people that are there. It'll give you more of a monthly basis instead of an annual basis. And there, I think, are 4 WordCamps in Florida, and they happen about every quarter. But it gives you an ability to extend your reach past just your local geographical base. You know, you go down to Miami or something like that, and you're dealing with a whole bunch of other people that, you know, can help you if you run into some roadblocks. You also get an opportunity to rub shoulders with the industry leaders. And I was looking forward to seeing SiteGround today, because that's actually the hosting platform that I use. But I got a chance to meet them when I went to WordCamp Miami, and it was nice to put a face to my tool that I use, instead of just seeing a web platform. I actually got to see people that work for that company. We are all dripping with swagoo this morning. There is no little amount of swag whenever you go to these events. And there are also active job opportunities. I made this slide thinking like, hey Sam, go check to see if there's active job opportunities this morning, and I forgot to do that. But I know other WordCamps have job posting boards. I was able to get a passive job opportunity because I made the connection with CE². And then once they had that opportunity come up, you know, they just like, oh, you already know Sam, you know, let's pick them up. So my last year of what I've been up to since WordCamp Orlando was I've been able to attend 2 other WordCamps, Miami and Jacksonville. Very different WordCamps. One was 150 people and one was like 800 people. But I love them both for different reasons. I've continued my learning into JavaScript and PHP. And the further that I get down into this stuff, the more I'm totally hooked by it, and I'm really excited. I've been able to start the agency, CE². And it was interesting because when I started at an agency, you know, I had the dream of, I want to be a web developer. And now I've had the opportunity to also be a digital marketer, do some SEO stuff, do some AdWords stuff. And I feel like it's just making me more marketable as a person. You know, just more tools that I have available to me. And I've been getting more involved. You know, I spoke at my last meetup. I'm able to have this awesome opportunity to be the keynote for this morning. And I'm just kind of, you know, if you stay around these companies long, or these groups of people long enough, they'll eventually let you in. I have also tried to build my personal brand. Right now, it's just the brand of Sam Smith, and it's just, I'm trying to use my social media to kind of document my learning. I feel like it's building credibility. You know, obviously I'm not a robot if I'm constantly putting up all this stuff I learned. And plus, there's times where I'll post something about that I'm learning, and I'll also get feedback from other people on how to do it better. I've also picked up a few leads on social media. You know, people that have now said like, oh, I didn't know you're doing websites, now I need a website. It's also, you know, an opportunity to help other people. You know, I know on our Facebook page, we get support questions that come through all the time. And, you know, if you can log on real quick, answer somebody's question, you know, it can give you the feeling like you're giving back to the community. This is a huge topic, and I am not an expert in this by any means. I did want to mention it, but there's no way to do it, you know, in one slide. So if I was going to recap my guide for somebody that's kind of just starting out and is curious, is to figure out what you need to learn. Try to get with people that can kind of set you up with a path of learning. So like I would say, you know, learn HTML, CSS, then JavaScript, then PHP. Try to get, you know, don't try to get them to answer all your questions. Just try to get a structure set for you. I would encourage anybody to team up with other people, not at the exclusion of, you know, like say a web designer or something like that. So a web developer, you know, try to find other web developers or designers or photographers, or, you know, anytime you put your heads together, you'd be surprised what you can achieve. Have the right tools, and if you need to, steal your wife's MacBook Air. Or husband's. But never stop learning. And when you are learning, try to document your process. Try to take some notes so that you have something to go back back on and quickly answer your questions instead of having to rewatch a course to learn or remember how to do something. Try to identify what you're passionate about. And this is a little rough in the beginning. I found that it was rough in the beginning because, I'm just trying to get a foundation of learning. But if something seems extremely passionate to you as you're learning it, put a pin in it and revisit it at a later date. Maybe that's just something that you should be learning. I would encourage everybody to get involved locally. We've got meetups every month, and they're a great place to learn and grow. It's okay to feel like you're not really getting anywhere, and I felt this a lot when I first started out. I told myself, like, every day I'm going to get up, even if it's 30 minutes, I'm just going to do something that pushes me forward in this career. And I found that months of doing that eventually started pushing me forward. Remember the 15-minute rule with Google? It's totally cool to ask for help, but being able to find the answers to your own questions is what's probably going to make or break you in this career, or at least that's what I've found. Build your brand. Best place to start is today. And don't give up. The big break could be around the corner. I got my job offer at WordCamp Miami. I was driving down there on a Thursday just thinking I was going to go down there and have a great time. And I actually left with a job offer. And, within a 72-hour period, I went from not having a job to feeling like I finally had arrived at what I wanted. So, if I was to provide a call to action, as cheesy as that sounds, for this weekend, just try to remember if you're first getting started in this, is that you're not alone. Everybody's nervous to some degree. I was very nervous at my first meetup. I was very nervous at my first WordCamp. I'm very nervous standing up in front of you guys. And I know that puts me in a vulnerable spot, but, I found that the things that made me the most nervous in this new venture had the biggest payoff. If I stared that adversity in the face and I just did it anyways, I was so much happier on the back end. And it's gotten to the point where if something makes me nervous, I'm going to start heading towards it now, not the other way. But people are here to meet other people. I would encourage you guys to just walk up to people, introduce yourself, and ask what they do with WordPress. I would say that connecting with people, and I didn't want to use the word networking because it sounds so dull, but networking with other people, I really feel is like the secret sauce to this whole thing. Like it's really what's going to push you forward and make you something big. Senior WP peeps, and I wrote that out, not realizing how weird it would be to say, but I decided to keep it anyways. But try to be a soft place to fall for these new people, these budding, web developers and web designers. When they're coming to you with bandy legs because they've got something on their site that they just can't figure out, try to be that safe place. I'm sure that I'm not one of Jesse Peterson's greatest achievements in his life. He had the ability to adopt 2 kids from the foster system with his wife. He had a very successful online career, and I know he gave CF a hell of a run for its money. But I know that if I had the opportunity to tell him that the way he helped me last year was going to give me enough confidence to get a job, to keep pushing forward in this career, and to eventually be able to stand up in front of everybody and give my story, I know he'd be proud of me. So don't miss out on that chance to feel like you can help other people, because I'm sure I haven't been able to do it yet, but I'm sure it's very fulfilling. And let's have a great time this weekend. We're here to have fun and learn, and that's what this is all about. So that's all I have for you guys right now. I really, really appreciate y'all giving me a chance to share my story. And thanks, guys. If you want to connect with me later, there's my stuff. So, what do we do? I don't mind doing a Q&A. We had talked about it a little bit. I'm waiting for David to do this. Do we have time? Let's do like, what, 4 questions? Okay, let's do a few questions.
I will start off by saying, you just said you haven't had the ability to help someone, but you just did, like with all of us. So.
You don't know how good that is.
My question was, so did you start last year? Like, has it been a year?
Okay. What she said was, has it been a year since I started learning? No, I actually got started in probably August of last year. That was when I didn't have a computer, and I was, trying to make that move.
Still only like a year and a half or so.
Yeah. It's amazing how fast you can learn stuff when you're super passionate about it, and it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're doing this instead of sleeping. So, any other questions?
Do you struggle with impostor syndrome?
Yes.
How do you know that?
The question was, do I struggle with imposter syndrome? I'm sure if they were writing about imposter syndrome today, they would use me as a case study. All the time. I ask myself, they are going to find out that you're a fraud, eventually. But, I've read about it. I've heard that, everybody kind of struggles with it in some degree in their career. So I just keep pressing forward. What was that?
In every career field.
Yeah. I try not to do that in firefighting. I really try to tell myself that I'm the person that can save their life, not like, well, someone else can do it better. Yeah, the family doesn't really appreciate that. So.
Are you still doing the firefighting?
I am. I was actually supposed to be at work today. But the cool thing is that, I'm on for 24 hours at a time. I'm off for 48. And if I take 1 day off, I get 5 days off. So, that's kind of also helped. I'm sure that helps. And what now? And I went to freelance. Someone else asked me about that last night. They said, why WordPress? Like, these feel like very contrasting roles. And it's getting to the point now, I used to be able to answer that question, and now I can't. Now it's just like, I don't know, because what I do now.
You have a job that's stressing and demanding and reserves a lot of your time and mental energy, so you could take a break and then you go do the firefighting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We should set up a help room for people that are dealing with horrible WordPress stuff.
Called the danger room.
Yeah, there you go.
So, 2 questions. Have you built a website for your fire station, and what do your fellow firefighters think of your side job?
Oh, God. As soon as I walk in, they start doing this. And they start talking like this. They call me a nerd. So, I deal with a constant barrage of teasing. And I try not to keep them out of my life, but I try not to tell them like, hey, I'm going to a event today to talk about how I'm leaving the fire service. But I've been able to do a few things with my job, and now that I'm learning about JavaScript and using programming to try to solve some of the problems that I'm having on the job, I haven't launched any of that stuff yet, but yeah, it's kind of nice to be able to use some of the issues that we face with the fire service. There's a saying, and I'm gonna mess it up, but the fire service is 100 years of. I'm gonna mess it up. It's just basically the punchline is that we have 100 years of technology and usefulness that none of us use because we use tradition instead. It's very hard to get firefighters to adopt new things. Their mentality is, well, we've been doing this for 100 years, so we're going to keep doing it. Which is why I love the technology community, because they're like, well, this tool's better, so we're going to use this tool instead. So. Sorry, this thing's in my eyes.
I have a question for the group. I'm curious as how many people here are doing websites for nonprofits?
Wow.
Can we have a
Well, guys, this has been really, really amazing. You have no idea. Thank you so much for doing this.